What up, teacups? It's your fairy Vlogmother, and welcome to the thrilling conclusion of The Griffin by the Brothers Grimm. Now, this is our third and final installment of this story, so at the end of this trial, I will finally get to drink the milk. I've already taken 2 hits of this hot sauce, but I'm gonna take a 3rd hit for you, just so y'all know it's legit. And did I mention it's 90 degrees in here? Because it's 90 freaking degrees in here, so if I seem a little sweaty, there's 2 reasons for that. So we're just gonna jump right back in here. I'm an adult who can make her own decisions. For some reason, I have been allowed to do this. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go! See, it's sharp and I gotta be careful. Not to stab myself while I'm doing it. I love you guys! Okay, back in we go. Now Hans has just heard it all 100 hairs. Back to the palace for the king. Dumbfounded, the king has one final fetch quest for Hans. He says to Hans, "Go to the other side of the map and bring me back a feather from the griffin's tail." And Hans is completely fed up at this point. And he says, "But that's so far away, and I haven't even leveled up enough yet for fast travel." "Don't worry," says the princess. "I'm sure the NPCs along the way will have some side quests for you. That'll get you tons of XP. And so Hans sets out to find the griffin. After traveling all day, he stops at the castle of one of the king's lords. And the lord of the manor asks him where he's headed. "To find the griffin and bring back a feather from its tail for the king," says Hans. "Oh, the griffin will do. I have a side quest for you," says the lord. You know where the key to my money chest is? I need me some hundos, so if you could just ask me the griffin for that real quick. I can't talk, I'm delirious, there's too much capsaicin. But if you could just ask the griffin where the key to my little money chest is, that would be fantastic. "Sure thing, bro," says Hans. Whew. The next morning, Hans sets out, yet again, and traveled through 3 different PvP areas before finally coming to another lord's castle for the night. Now this lord's daughter was ill, and no one had a high enough stats in potion making to cure her. "Please, Hans," asked the lord of the castle, "ask the griffin for some cheat codes to cure my daughter, at the very least a walkthrough." Hans nodded, and added the task to his quest book. The next morning, Hans began traveling once more until he reached a lake. I want a lake right now, I want one. After raging out for several minutes at the thought of having to build yet another boat, Hans saw a ferryman slowly approaching. "Tra-la-la," says the ferryman. "Eat a mushroom every day. Why? Well, then I know you're listening to me." What?" says Hans. "Tra-la-la, do you want to cross the lake? I can take you," says the ferryman. "Okay," says Hans. While they are crossing, the ferryman asks Hans where he's going. "To pluck a feather from the griffin's tail and give it to the king," he says. The ferryman then asks Hans if he could find out why he's forced fairy people across the lake and how to break this spell. "I'll ask the griffin for you," says Hans. "Tra-la-la, thank you," says the ferryman, and drops Hans off on the shore safe and sound. Hans only went a little further before coming to the griffin's house. The griffin was out on business, but his inexplicably human wife was home, wearing a griffin fursuit. Exhausted, Hans asked her all about the side quests that he had collected before finally asking her how in the Sam Hill he was going to get the griffin's tail feathers without being eviscerated. "Hide under a bed and I will ask all these things for you. Then, when he falls asleep, reach up and pluck one of his tail feathers," she says. "It's not like we've already established that the griffin knows everything or anything. Trust me." "Dope," says Hans, and schleps himself under the bed. When the griffin comes home, he says, "Waifu, darling, it totally smells like a nerd in here. What gives?" "Oh, there was one earlier today looking for his LARPing group, but I started talking about student loans and it scared him right off," says the wife. Later that night, when the Griffin and his furry wife had gone to bed, Hans reached up and plucked a feather from the Griffin's tail. "The fuck," says the Griffin. "Something is pulling at my tail." "Shh, you must have been dreaming," says his wife. "You were muttering in your sleep, too," she said. "It sounded like you were looking for a key to the Lord's money chest, a cure for the other Lord's daughter, and a reason why the ferryman is forced to help people across the lake and how to fix that," she said. "Preposterous, I know all those things," said the Griffin. "The Lord's key is so far up his ass he can probably taste it by now. The other Lord's daughter just needs a potion of toad's blood and hair to be cured. I went over the whole process in my YouTube walkthrough. And the ferryman just needs to ditch someone in the middle of the lake to be free," he said indignantly before rolling over and going back to sleep. Early the next morning, the Griffin went out again, and Hans comes out from under the bed, looking flatter than ever, holding the tail feather. And he takes the tail feather and bids farewell to the Griffin's furry wife before setting off for home. And when he comes to the lake, the ferryman takes him across. "Tra-la-la, did you finish the quest I gave you?" asked the ferryman. And Hans told him to leave the next fucker stranded in the middle of the lake and the ferryman would be free to go. And Hans then made his way to the second Lord's castle where he showed the Griffin's complete potion-making walkthrough to the Lord. And the Lord's daughter drank the potion and was cured, but was so grossed out that you'd hardly ever notice. The next day, Hans came to the first Lord's castle and kicked him in the ass so hard that the key came flying out of his mouth. "But if that was in there," says the Lord, "then where the hell are my butt plugs?" And lo, when he opened the money chest, there amongst the hundos was the gilded butt plug. "Huzzah," said the Lord. And so Hans gained all that sweet side quest XP, just in time to fast travel back to the king's castle. And Hans presented the king with the Griffin's tail feather. And when the king saw all the sweet loot that Hans had scored from his quests, he became greedy, and asked how he too could get some. And good old dumbass Hans told the king to take the fairy to see the Griffin, who was just as generous as he was knowledgeable. And so the king drug his pasty ass all the way out there, only to be left in the middle of the lake by the ferryman to drown. Tra-la-la, motherfucker. Unfazed by this, Princess Pex marries Hans, making him king of all the fucking land. And that is a wrap. And I am going to drink this milk now. Cheers. Well, that was probably the most metal thing I've done in a long time. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and thank you all so much for watching. Please check the poll in the description below, or leave me a comment, and who knows, your wish just might get granted. Toodles!